exactly do you do with Ammani Bates? Do you treat him like a second round pick? Do you treat him as somebody who was projected to be a top 5 lottery pick coming out of high school? We'll talk about that and more coming up. But before we do that, Ammani Bates is a completely interesting topic to go on, because some people view Ammani Bates as a second round draft pick flyer that may or may not pan out. This is a guy who was in the MAC, had to transfer for a couple of years, had to figure it out, also had some off the court issues. We all know it's well documented. If you want to know more about that story, there's plenty of YouTube videos that will fill you in on this. But there's another life that Ammani Bates lived, right? Like, there is the life that he lived where he was a regular college player, basically. Somebody who was all MAC, good potential, 6'8", has the tools, but hasn't really shown it fully in his college career. Comes to Cleveland in the second round as a 49th overall pick, and is somebody who's hoping to make the roster. That's the one life that Ammani Bates has lived. But if you go on Ammani Bates' Wikipedia, you'll notice that his high school career is documented for all 4 years, which is not normal. Not many of us have Wikipedia pages dedicated to our high school basketball career, which will tell you that Ammani Bates was seen as one of the best future players in the world. And this was the case. Ammani Bates, coming out of high school, was a 5-star prospect from Rivals, 24/7 Sports, and ESPN. Had a prospect grade of 97 coming out of Michigan. Was the 4th-ranked prospect on Rivals. 24/7 Sports had him ranked 5th. ESPN had him ranked 3rd. If you look at the Rivals 150 at the time, Ammani Bates is up there with top draft picks like Paolo Banchero, Chet Holmgren, Jabari Smith. Like, this is who he was originally destined to be around, right? That class of player. Now, unfortunately, and look, I don't know much about college basketball, but what I do know is that there have been several top prospects that have went to Memphis, and that move seems to have not worked out, right? James Wiseman, Ammani Bates, I believe Penny Hardaway was there, or is still there, and he was recruiting really well for a while, but then they got hit with something. But either way, like, these dudes who went to Memphis, there was a lot of excitement around the program. It just didn't work out. And Ammani Bates ended up having to transfer from Memphis, didn't really play well when he was there, to Eastern Michigan. And instead of coming out of the draft last year, like he was destined at top 5 conversation with Jabari Smith, with Paolo, with all these other guys, he comes out in 2023 after playing in the MAC, was 3rd team on MAC, had a bounce back, and he goes in the second round, not because he played bad, I think more or less because of some of the concerns about him off the court. And again, I don't know a ton about that. I don't want to talk like I do, because I think that can lead you into a lot of things. I just want to keep it strictly on the court about Ammani. So you're at this weird place, because there are some people who followed Ammani through the high school ranks, through his college recruiting, who are always going to see Ammani Bates as a top 5 quality, like that level of pick. There are going to be some people who don't know that about Ammani, have heard these things about Ammani, but don't know that about Ammani, and look at him and say he's the 49th pick in the draft. And that's where we start with the frenzy around him. Now, to Ammani's credit, he got to Cleveland. He seemed very excited about coming to Cleveland, and he's had some moments here in his early off-season career as a Cavalier. He's had some moments, which I think is important to point out. He had a great summer league. I would say the preseason went pretty well for him, right? He had 16 points against the Maccabi team that everybody be playing, 12 against Orlando, and 10 against Atlanta in the first preseason game. So, not blowing over the world stuff, but in 10, 14, 12 minutes, it's not bad. And then when he got 23 minutes, he scored 16 on all right efficiency. So it leads us to this question with Ammani Bates. A question on the front office, a question of the team, a question of the fan base. How are we viewing Ammani Bates? Are we viewing Ammani Bates as a late second round pick that we hope can make the roster? And are we going to treat him the same that we treated Dean Wade and other guys of that ilk, right? That have been late second round picks. Maybe they make the team. Best you can expect out of them is a role player. If you get anything else than that, awesome, right? Jokic's and guys like that only come around every so often. Chris Middleton's and everything else. So is that what the expectations are for Ammani Bates? Based on the amount of YouTube videos that I've seen about Ammani Bates from people that I respect about basketball and the Cavs in general, I don't think that's where we at with Ammani Bates. I think that we are at a significantly more optimistic place with Ammani Bates. And I think the place to put him, right, because it's very similar to how people felt about Michael Porter Jr. and how people still continue to feel about Michael Porter Jr., where Michael Porter Jr. was somebody who, along with Marvin Bagley in that draft, he was supposed to be the number 1 or 2 overall pick, right? It was supposed to be him or Marvin Bagley, if you followed high school recruiting and early college stuff at that time. Now, Michael Porter, I keep getting those two mixed up. Michael Porter went to Missouri, hurt his back, didn't play. Kind of a similar situation to Darius Garland, even though I think Darius hurt his knee, not his back. But Michael hurt his back, and back injuries scare NBA teams because when you're jumping, when you're boxing out, when you're playing basketball, your back is just going to be stressed at a high level. So back injuries scare teams. Scares teams all the way past, I think even the Cavs took, was that the Colin Sexton year? The Cavs took Colin Sexton or Darius Garland. Michael Porter gets drafted late, and he's kind of seen as this wild card. If he gets healthy, he could be a superstar. If he doesn't, it won't be that big of a deal, right? But you're always going to view his potential as that guy who could have been number 1 or 2 overall in the draft. And it worked out for the Nuggets. He got healthy relatively. I mean, it took a while, but he got relatively healthy, became an integral part to that team, and part of the reason that team was able to have the season that they had last year to win the championship. So it worked out. And I think Ammani Bates is Cleveland's Michael Porter, where he feels a need that the team needs desperately. He's a 6'8" wing that can score. The Cavs have no 6'8" wings that can create their own shot and shoot. They have guys who can shoot. They have guys who can defend, but they don't have both. This has been a glaring problem on this roster ever since they traded Lauri Markkanen, and even before that, it was a glaring problem on the team. The Cavs, I think, are hoping to get the Ammani Bates that was top 5 quality coming out of high school, that had that kind of potential, this long, rangy kid who can do it all from the small forward position. That's what they hope. Because if he does become that, let's say Ammani Bates does become a great scorer, then all of a sudden losing Donovan Mitchell, if that happens after this year, not really that big of a deal. Might be something that can help you out because it allows you to probably get a bigger 2 guard who can defend in space, which is easier to find than a 3 guard who can defend in space, which the Cavs have been struggling to find. It allows you to find somebody like that. You don't have to worry about losing scoring if Ammani Bates can become a legit, like, top 5 quality draft prospect player. Then all of a sudden you can lose Donovan Mitchell. It might even benefit you to lose Donovan Mitchell because you'll free up a ton of cap space to get more pieces in here that fit around the core of Ammani, Darius, and Evan. If Ammani Bates pans out, and that's an if. But it's important to remember the questions about Ammani Bates aren't about health in the physical standpoint. It might be more about mental health. So it's harder to predict. But in the same way that Michael Porter had the one injury that's as difficult to predict is mental health, it's kind of very similar. So that's where the Cavs are. The Cavs are in this position to where they're taking a low-level gamble on Ammani Bates and hoping it pans out. And it's a gamble that, if it pans out, is not something that feels like a long shot. Because Ammani Bates, if he becomes one of the 5 best players in this draft class, well, that's what people thought a year prior to him getting drafted, that he would be one of the 5 best players in the previous draft class. So it shouldn't be that much of a surprise. But it will be a surprise. That's where I think the Cavs are. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.